I hope you all had a great Valentine's Day. Whether you're actually dating or you're like me, where I had to cat sit for my brother. Which isn't a problem, I love cats. The point is, the day of love is behind us, and now it's time to trash on love. It's garbage! Why do we fall for its flaws? It sucks! Anyways, after a video where I talked about the positives of romantic love, and the relationships in WEBTOON series, I wanted to do a separate video on the opposite. It's always good to promote good relationships, and often in WEBTOON series, both original and canvas, they promote their good relationships. And while not as much, we do see a lot of bad relationships. Toxic, hurtful, uncaring, unsympathetic, dangerous types of love. And I think it's just as important, if not more so, to talk about these relationships. The ones that give us an idea of what to avoid in the real world. So that's the idea of today. We're gonna go through a few WEBTOON series, checking out the relationships and the forms of love, and why they don't work or why we should look out for them. Now, something we need to establish in these relationships are the people, as relationships are made up of people. When dealing with toxic forms of relationship, or even love, it's important to remember that they're people. Both parties might be at fault, maybe it's just one. The point is, it will be difficult to say someone isn't at fault, even if it is easy to say it. It's easy to say someone is a terrible person because of what they did. It's easy to villainize them, to paint them in a world in black and white. Yes, there will be people who deserve that kind of treatment. But the point is that not everyone needs to be painted as a villain. And it's appropriate to paint these characters like this because not everyone you meet will be a villain. Not everyone who does bad is a villain. A great example of this is Nice to Meet You, a charming webtoon that came out recently. Nice to Meet You focuses on Mew in school. She's in school. Anyways, it's a nice story about her and her friends, like Simon, and her crush on Days. A cute story, with a great and very cute and fun art style, great moment, just go read it, I love it, go read it, it's good, it's just good. Now, Mew is comparatively different from other females in the story. As we hear Leah, another female lead, say, her face is plain, she doesn't even have curves. I don't get it. Mew's trade-off is her hyper and almost overbearing positivity, as she's a beacon of light compared to everyone. Meanwhile, we have Alex, a chibi-looking man with a crush on our main character, Mew. Now, Alex is a seemingly sweet guy, someone who admires Mew's skill and talents. However, after Mew starts to get entangled with a bunch of other guys, like Days and his friends Win and Mickey, Alex kind of turns? Eventually confessing to her on her birthday, and when it looks like she's about to turn him down, Alex, without consent, tries to kiss her. Which is all kinds of wrong, and even when she manages to get out of the situation, Alex still believes that she has feelings for him. It takes Alex seeing Mew cry to realize his mistake. We see it dawn on him how awful he's behaved, how his actions have hurt Mew, someone he said he loved, someone he believed he loved, eventually calling himself a monster. And it could have been easy to agree with him. It could have been very easy to villainize Alex here. His actions were wrong, hurtful, and scary, as sure he was a nice guy who believed he deserved something, and we see how far nice guys go. However, the webtoon chooses a different path, having Mew question Alex's choices and actions, even helping him understand things, helping him learn a lesson for the future. Maybe what you felt for me wasn't exactly what you thought it was. Maybe you don't love me romantically, but rather you love me as a friend. There's more than one way to love someone. Alex, I don't reciprocate your feelings, but I am flattered. But you can't force yourself on someone like that. Do you understand? Staying in the same series, we also see how love makes you hurt others, as The other female I mentioned, Leah, is set up as the stereotypical pretty mean girl, as she's someone who also has a crush on Days, but is confused as to why he's more interested in someone like Mew. This leads Leah to trash on Mew. A lot, eventually hitting her boiling point. Don't you two look like a couple? Why is everyone so fixated on Mew? Acting all quirky and eccentric? This is just an act for attention. You're even doing the same thing with that guy in your theater class. Leading her to get slapped by one of her friends, and also leading to an argument. And I have to bring up a thing here. You know what a saying I hate is? Love makes you do crazy things. While I don't necessarily disagree, if you're saying that love is the reason you're doing dumb and stupid things, then you don't really understand what love is. You're hurting someone over love. What kind of twisted form of love are you dealing with? Luckily, Nice to Meet You chooses to go the pacifist route, by really getting into everyone's background, making us understand how they became the way they are, humanizing them. And we get to understand and even relate to their struggles. Eventually, we do see Mew and Leah bond, and grow to understand each other. Moving on, let's talk about webtoon I didn't think I'd bring up this much, Lore Olympus. Do I need to explain Lore Olympus? Okay, let's speedrun this. Lore Olympus follows two gods, the god of the dead, Hades, and the goddess of spring, Persephone. These two gods are presented as opposites, but throughout the story we get to see how similar these two gods are, as they do fall in love with each other. Wow, that wasn't actually that hard to explain. Anyways, one of the similarities that these two gods have are the relationships they have before they get intertwined with each other. Now, before getting into their relationships, I have to throw up a quick warning. While I did make a point to explain how not everyone needs to be villainized, we're going to be getting into a lot of themes of sexual trauma, assault, and abuse. So if any of those are problematic for you, then you should probably stop watching this video. I talk about it a lot after this. First, let's start with Minty. I've talked in depth about Minty. In fact, I have 2 videos focusing on her. Granted, don't watch the oldest one because I mispronounce her name a lot, but Minty has done a lot to her partner, Hades. She's actually one of the first characters introduced. And while having a conversation with Hades about going to a party, deciding not to go, she says, "What I mean is, I don't particularly feel like being seen with you in public today. I don't feel like being seen with you in general." Hades, all the fine suits in the world won't change the fact that you stink of death. And while we later see that Minty only did that to push Hades away from proposing to her, it still doesn't change the words that Minty said, or the way she acted. Even when trying to get back with Hades, she still pushes blame onto him. And while Hades does take her back, Minty doesn't exactly act superb during the relationship, really only flaunting Hades to cause Persephone to get jealous. But when push comes to shove, she only hurts him more. Eventually, when Hades tries to discuss their relationship, Minty flips out on him, slapping him and yelling at him why no one likes him. Which is strange. It's a bit weird to say that Minty loves Hades, but I can't not believe it. Minty does love Hades, but it's more possessive than anything. As if she wants complete control over him. As she's never happy with what Hades is offering, but when he wants to leave, she doesn't let him. Rather, she forces him to take her back, going to his house when it's raining, purposely making Hades feel worse, making it seem like she's his best option. Even showing up in his office in her underwear, which is weird. These actions don't show someone who's learned their lesson and wants forgiveness, rather someone who doesn't appreciate the things that she has in her life, only hurting the people who want to help her. It won't work. You and Miss Perfect? Do you think cutting back on a few cigarettes is gonna be enough? Scooping her up in your arms will magically give you a clean slate. Eventually, she'll see what you're like, what you're really like. It's only a matter of time before you disappoint her. You'll be back, because we are the same. And we can talk about Persephone's past situation. While Hades did agree to be with Minty, Persephone didn't. And this moment is a little tricky to discuss. After Apollo tries and fails at flirting, he simply goes for it, eventually pressuring Persephone into having sex with him. This, plain and simple, is a rape scene. And after this moment, Apollo believes he has control over Persephone. At the end of this chapter, Apollo calls Persephone his girl, and he continuously tries to control Persephone. From trying to pick her up at school, to trying to demonize Hades to both Persephone and Artemis, going so far as to try to get her in trouble, leading to Persephone to justifiably harbor resentment towards Apollo, eventually leading to her exploding at him. You're my problem. I guarantee you what you're feeling right now is a mere fraction of what I feel for you. I was thinking of hiding your lyre from you for a decade or so, just to see what you would do. Quietly enjoy your frustration from a distance. Watch you come apart. But after hearing your spiel today, Tartarus, it's just insult to injury. You don't have feelings for me, just this unfounded impulse to control me. I've made it clear in so many different ways that I'm not interested. The only way I can get through to you is to show you this. I'm afraid of you. It's difficult to accurately depict these relationships in only a few minutes, but I think these quotes are the clearest way to explain it. Minty is clinging to the past, believing that Hades will be back because he's just as bad as her. And it's likely that staying in that relationship would have brought Hades down even more. They were both bad for each other, as they both fed into terrible impulses within each other. Meanwhile, Persephone's relationship was one of fear. Absolute fear. Being petrified of what being close to Apollo meant to her. Being scared of doing any action because she's afraid it might lead to what caused her fear in the first place. I know I didn't really talk about a lot of WEBTOON series this week, but I think it's because these two WEBTOON series really portray the best of both worlds. In Nice to Meet You, we see people who aren't really that bad, but are just confused and a little unstable when it comes to love. People like Alex and Leah. They're not great people for doing what they've done, but they understand why they messed up. They understand how hurtful they've become and try to change for the future. Meanwhile, we have our Olympus relationships that show us how awful toxic love can be. How much it can scare us, scar us, and bring us down. Yes, the world isn't filled with black and white, but it's important to see how terrible the extremes are. It's important to see how dangerous toxic love can be, how it can feed into your worst impulses or even petrify you. That's why I like these series so much, because it doesn't just focus on the beauties of romantic love or the problems with having your partner do this or whatever garbage. I'm not the most optimistic. And I think by portraying things we should look out for, it helps us understand. Not every relationship will be perfect, but we can avoid being in relationships that really are dangerous to us. Ones that bring us down, hurt us, scare us, or betray us. By portraying toxic relationships, we see that the world isn't as black and white as media would like us to believe. That's why I thought we should talk about toxic love after romantic love, as I think we're going in order of important types of love. Toxic love is important to understand because it's important that you never get into it. But that's just my thoughts. What about you? Which webtoon series do you think handle or tackle toxic love correctly or incorrectly? What do you think about the series I've just talked about? Leave it in the comments below. But, like always, thank you for watching, and I hope I'll see you next week.